Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new chess video. Welcome to what will surely become your favorite video on the entire YouTube platform, because I'm going to teach you a system that you can always play in your games. You just need to learn this system, and all your worries with the white pieces will be over. It starts with the move d4, and don't worry, it's not a system that's just about tricks, though there are some, but it's a super solid system with a clear attack. And all you have to do is more or less memorize the ideas from this video and use them in your games. You just have to launch this attack, which you're going to find amazing. Look, it doesn't matter what your opponent plays. It really doesn't. For example, let's suppose they play double queen's pawn. It doesn't matter. Just memorize the white pieces. First, we'll play E. This might look like a Kali system. It might seem like a passive system, but don't worry, it's nothing like that. No matter what black plays, like I said, it really doesn't matter. We'll place this bishop here, and again, no matter what they play, what we'll do next is F. All right, take a look at this setup, which probably looks familiar to many of you as the Stonewall structure, right? Later on, it got renamed as the Boiling Frog setup. You'll see why it's called that, because it's absolutely amazing, all right? It might look like a passive setup, but it's actually super aggressive. Now, notice that after they play any other move, we'll push this pawn and we'll have this setup here, which looks pretty dangerous and pretty bad, but it's actually really good. If you have less than 2,300 elo, I think you're going to crush it, both in fast games and slow games. And now I'm going to explain all the attacking plans to you, because they're absolutely devastating. All right, so here, how should we continue after this move? Well, no matter what they play, notice that I'm showing you black's best line, all right? Place the pawn on E, on D, on C, and both knights in the right spots, so you can see that even if they play well, this setup totally works. We'll put this knight over here, all right? It really doesn't matter to us how they develop. I recommend you put this knight here and castle. I don't care what order you use, okay? It doesn't matter to me. You can castle first if you want. For example, they might try to castle too. All right, let's go ahead and castle. As you can see, I haven't set anything up for the black pieces, just to show you that whatever moves they make, everything works exactly the same. Our attack works against black. Now, we place this knight here, and this is the position you need to memorize. This is the setup you absolutely have to use in all your games, and this is where your attack will begin. What's so good about this system? No matter what they do, they'll let you set it up because it's super easy and completely impossible to break. If they play this move to chase away your bishop, you just move it back. I mean, your opponent can't do anything at all here, right? Great, no matter what they do. For example, imagine they try to bring their bishop over here. It doesn't matter if they bring it out this way. We're going to do exactly the same thing. What's our plan? Super easy to remember. Once we've set up the whole structure, we're going to place our knight here. What's the point of that? Well, notice that they never want to trade this knight. Why? Because then we would open up with this pawn and our rook would join the attack. For example, if they capture with the bishop, we would simply recapture with this pawn. And now, notice something. This rook immediately joins the attack, and this knight would have to move out of the way. In other words, we would have all our pieces available, even over here, to come in and deliver a checkmate that most likely can't be stopped. All right? So opponents don't want to capture this knight, and even less so with their own knight, because look, now we'd be pulling off an amazing double attack. In conclusion, once we have this set up, we'll place a knight here that can't be captured. And since it can't be captured, you can see it's super strong. Look, this knight is controlling all the squares on the board. This knight is attacking, and it absolutely has to be defended, because as you can see, if it moves away, it would also be losing a tempo. But we wouldn't really mind, because we could reinforce here, and usually they'll defend it with the bishop. So this is where you need to think about how to continue, all right? My idea, and I think it's the best idea from the Boiling Frog, is to start going on the attack right now. Look at what we're doing. Thanks to this pawn, we've left a gap to bring the rook into the attack. And this rook might seem exposed, but the thing is, no one can attack it, thanks to our stonewall setup that protects it completely. For example, they still have to keep developing, and nothing is stopping us at all. What do we want to do? Bring our pieces into the attack. Notice that you can get really creative in your games using this setup. I'm showing you a simple example so you can see how to launch an attack. See how our pieces are coming straight in to target the opponent's castled king? The queen can join in, and this is going to turn into a real nightmare for our opponents. For example, no matter how much they try to bring in other pieces to defend, because they can already see what's coming for them. For instance, they want to bring the knight over here. Notice that at this point, we've already got a completely winning position. Let's see if you can come up with a move to win. If not, don't worry, I'll tell you. Look, bishop takes with check, and now they can just resign. If they move away, we would simply move with, discover checks, so they absolutely have to capture. They can't do it with the king because of the rook, so they have to use the knight. And why did we sacrifice this bishop? Because now we simply bring in the queen, and this checkmate is unavoidable. As you can see, we're threatening queen takes knight checkmate. The knight can't be defended by any other piece, and if it moves away, we would simply give check on the back rank. Did you like it? Well, this is just the introduction. We're going to look at even more variations and better ones so you can win all your games with the white pieces. Look, it doesn't matter to us. Now let's see, for example, knight to f. We saw this before, but really, we're going to do the same thing. With what I do? Well, it's very simple. Place our bishop on D, our pawn on F, the other on C. Do you remember? And do the same thing. Very simple. For example, if they play D, we're going to do this. It makes absolutely no difference to us if they play E. You already know what we're going to do. Push this F pawn directly with the idea of controlling this square here. If you understand the idea, I assure you that you'll be able to understand your games no matter what your opponent does, okay? You'll be able to win a lot, a whole lot of them. I even recommend this opening for, that is, an hour and a half games and long tournament games. It's a super effective system. You already know the cat is always the best counterplay whenever there's a doubled queen's pawn. And kuh from black side, if they don't play kuh and instead play this or this, then it's actually going to be even easier for you, because I'm going to share a secret with you. We're going to attack the castled king on this side, while our opponent should be attacking us on the queen side, because if not, they won't be able to attack here since we have the stone wall. All right, we're always going to play this move, which is super important, especially whenever they play king against us.
Why?
Because that way, if they advance on us, we can simply retreat. The bishop here will stay on the same diagonal. And not only that, but now our opponent has lost their counterplay because this pawn is now blocked. That's why advancing is not a good idea. And whenever they capture, we'll recapture with this pawn here. I'll explain why in a bit, because it's super, super important. All right, let's keep going. For example, let's suppose our opponent doesn't advance, but instead plays well and, for instance, develops their knight. All right, so what are we going to do? Well, the same as before, knight with the same idea of castling, placing this knight over here, jump it over here. You remember, right? See how simple it is? Because we always do the same thing. For example, now we're going to develop the bishop over here. Before I did it over here, now I'm going to do it over here. So you can see that the attack is pretty similar. What are we going to do? Castle. It doesn't matter to us if they castle too. All right, and now it's time to jump in. But first, I'm going to recommend that you place the knight on D like I mentioned before. And you know why it's so important to place the knight here first? Well, because if you jump in right away. Oh, and by the way, if you want to say hi to my dog, you can leave a greeting in the comments. He'll be super grateful because I'm recording out here on the terrace and it's a really beautiful sunny day. The board looks good, right? All right, let's keep going. Sorry, I know I talk a lot. Why is it so important to place the knight here? Like I was saying, because if we jump in right away, they can do exactly the same thing. Do you see it? And this knight here would just be a headache. That's all it would be. On the other hand, if we first place the knight on D, notice that now they can't jump because we're attacking it with two pieces. That's why they won't ever be able to jump with this knight here if we play knight to D. So it's super important to play knight to D first. Is that clear? That's the only thing you need to keep in mind before placing your knight here, so they don't do exactly the same thing to you. It's very simple. You put it here, and now it doesn't matter what they do. They could develop the queen, they could move these pawns. You should know that if they move these pawns to stop the attack, they create weaknesses, both this one and this one. And I'm going to show you how to attack them, because it's very easy. Let's suppose they play this move, which is the most popular, but it doesn't matter if they don't. Why? We're jumping here, and there's no way to stop it. They can't capture because we'd recapture, controlling the file with our rook. They also can't jump here. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and we're attacking the rook and castling position while up a pawn. They'd have to retreat, leaving our attack way too strong. We'd have the bishop coming in, the rook as well, way too easily, and this queen with the help of the knight. So it's clear that if they capture here, it's like this. If they capture here, you'll have it way too easy to win this attack. That's why they can't capture. With the other case, with the bishop, it was exactly the same. Do you remember? This knight is untouchable. Remember, if they capture it, thank you very much. If they keep defending this knight, which is what they have to do, or if they do anything else, for example, with the queen, it doesn't matter to us. We're going to have three ways to attack with this boiling frog attack. The first with the rook, very obvious. The second with the queen, also very obvious. And the third, the most aggressive, with the pawn. It might seem like the king is going to be very exposed if we push our pawns forward, but don't worry, because our opponent doesn't have any kind of attack thanks to our central stone wall, and whenever they try to capture here, we can recapture and won't have any problems. Whenever they try to advance, their counterplay will run out thanks to this gap we've opened up for the bishop. All right, see how simple it is? Serious question. Now I'm going to show you how to attack, okay? For example, what's my favorite attack, Chestnut? I'm sure you're wondering, is it the rooks, the pawns, or the queen's attack? Well, my favorite is the queen's attack, and it's just that simple. You place the queen here. It makes perfect sense. Why? Because it can't go here or here. Since we have the knight, now I'll tell you how to drive this knight away, because it's very simple. But there's one thing you need to know. Notice that in this video, I'm going to explain everything you need to know to play this system really well and win a lot of games, which is why I appreciate your support on these videos so much. All right, so you need to know how to act if they capture this pawn, because there's always some tension here, and you need to know how to respond. Don't worry, it's very simple. If they advance, you just pull back. It's that easy. But if they capture, it's extremely important, and remember this well, you must capture with the e-pawn. Let me explain why. If you capture with the e-pawn, yes, you reinforce this knight, but the most important thing is that you're freeing up this bishop, which was really boxed in here. So you capture here and free the bishop. But that's not the most important part. If you capture with the c-pawn, we're creating a huge counterplay. Notice here, when we move the bishop back, they come in with the rook, they come in with the knight, and what we're doing is setting up counterplay, or basically giving our opponent counterplay. Botvinnik used to say that there's no need to let your opponent create counterplay, no matter how harmless it may seem. You can simply avoid it. How? Well, by capturing here, and at no point do the lines on a C file open up. Sorry, this goes here. It's that simple, okay? Now, this knight can't jump anymore. Remember, we're attacking on this flank, and they're attacking on that one. Notice that on this flank, they can't do absolutely anything. All right, now let's talk about the plans we have with the white pieces. Well, here they can play whatever they want. For example, rook to c would be an excellent move for the black pieces because it would be placing it on a semi-open file. What is a semi-open file? A file that doesn't have the pawn that bothers the rook. It's not open because we still have our own pawn there. That's why it's semi-open. All right, so now what we want is to attack with the queen. How can we do it if this knight is in our way? Well, first we need to drive it out. How can we drive this knight out? Well, look how simple it is. G. Are you afraid to play G in this position? You shouldn't be afraid. Why? Because notice that the queen can't come to attack. She's trapped, just like the bishop. And the knight can't jump and can never come here because we have massive pressure on our pieces, and we'd be winning material. So you really shouldn't be afraid of this advance here. The king isn't wakened along the diagonal either, because these two pawns are stuck here, and this pawn has simply disappeared. And if it were here, it would be exactly the same, all right? Because we'd be like this, and this diagonal wouldn't be open in any way. So don't be afraid to play this G move. I repeat it just in case, okay? It's really, really simple. All right, after this G move, it's likely that our opponent will try to defend. Careful, if they play this, they're giving us a huge advantage because it doesn't stop us from advancing. We would advance, and on top of that, we'd be winning the game immediately because this pawn would no longer exist, and there would be similar plans to before. That's why here, when you play G, sorry, it's like this. When you play G, they can't play this move. If you were wondering at any point, what they have to do is try to stop us from advancing. For example, by moving the knight away first. But notice that here, it's already way too hard for them to defend. If they don't move the knight, we'll force it out ourselves. And if they do move it, it's really exactly the same. What we're going to do is bring the queen into the attack. Why? Because the key castle defender, the one protecting the checkmate square, is no longer there. We bring the queen over. Now we're directly threatening checkmate with the bishop and queen. All right, so how do they stop it? Obviously, not with this pawn, because we would just break through here and checkmate would come anyway. There's no way to stop it. So many of you might say, well, the only way left is to defend with this other pawn to block the bishop's diagonal. Yes, this definitely seems like a much better idea, but notice that they're still not in time to stop it because they can't do anything, and we have all the time in the world to set up our attack. Look, we bring the knight that wasn't doing anything into the attack, one more piece. So now, at this point, they can't do anything at all. If we suppose they trade this knight over here, what would happen? Well, simply the same thing as before. We would capture with the rook's pawn, and now even more lines would open up to launch our attack. We'd open up the bishop's file, we'd open up the knight's rook file, we'd have absolutely all our pieces except this rook attacking the opponent's king. So it makes sense that they don't capture this knight here. If they do, as always, thank you very much. In this case, I'm going to show you that there's no way to escape here, using an example from a real game. In one game, they played this move here, and the game simply ended. Notice that the attack can come from all directions, and look at what an elegant way to finish. Simply knight takes pawn, sacrificing the knight. For what purpose? Now the bishop comes in. With so many pieces attacking, it's lost. What's the threat? Checkmate next. And there's only one way to survive. What is that way to survive? Well, by sacrificing the rook. Do you see it? If they don't sacrifice the rook, it's checkmate on the next move. So the only move is to block with the rook right here. We simply capture, and now checkmate is absolutely inevitable. For example, we bring in the queen, like in the example from the game I'm showing you. They brought in the queen, and this king has to step aside for her. And surely there are several ways to finish here, but the most beautiful one, do you know what this wonderful move is here? Go ahead, pause the video if you want to try it yourself, because I'm about to say it. It's this move right here. Why is this move so deadly and so beautiful? Because it's threatening checkmate on the next move, plain and simple. So the only way they can stop it is by taking this knight, and when they capture it, we simply take back with this pawn and deliver this beautiful checkmate with the rook. We wanted to open up the rook, and now when it moves away, we would simply come over here and checkmate with the queen. Well, this is just one example of how to attack, but don't worry because you'll be able to get super creative. There are endless ways to attack with this strategy. So by now, you probably realize what makes this system so strong. It's really easy to use. We always do the same thing, but the real strength, the truly powerful part, is that we can use it no matter what our opponents do. For example, here, when we use our setup, imagine they play double knights. Our opponent isn't that strong and doesn't know that in the double queen's pawn opening, they should play this c-pawn move before moving the knight. If you're a player who understands and has studied chess well, you already know this, but you might run into someone who doesn't and just plays both knights right away because they've been taught to quickly develop their pieces toward the center. And they're absolutely right. However, this is the little counterplay they absolutely need to make. But anyway, how should you do it? Well, exactly the same. Do you see it? We just stick to our plan, no matter what they do. Look, imagine they're super aggressive. I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter what they throw at us, okay? Imagine they come at us to attack the queen. That's possible too. What's our idea? It's simply to keep developing. Notice that we don't care. Have they done anything with this bishop over here? No. Even if you want to and are aggressive, a little later you can do this to try to trap the opponent's bishop, okay? Very well, but this is not what we are dealing with right now. Let's keep looking at what happens if they're aggressive, if they play in a slightly more amateur style. None's wrong, and they can also do it to us. For example, if they come this way, notice that the attack is exactly the same as the one we're going to make. See, our idea is the same. They develop the bishop, they have to do it in order to castle, that's obvious. So what do we do now? Remember, we can castle or place the knight on d. It really doesn't matter what order we do it in. For example, if we castle, they might castle too, which would be the most logical move for both a beginner and a professional in this position, since they can castle. And notice, they've played completely differently, but we've done exactly the same thing. All right, now pay attention to one thing here. What are we going to do? Well, we'd have several ideas after playing the knight. Notice that here, the most commonly played move by black is this one right here. Why? Well, because it's a typical move to prevent this knight from jumping in once the queen is gone, and to avoid getting our bishop trapped. That's why herb is such a popular move. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to us whether they play it or not. We're going to keep going with our attack. All right, here the engines recommend playing this knight over here so that this bishop can't land right on this square. But honestly, it's pretty rare for someone to move their bishop back like that. What do I recommend? I recommend you come over here, obviously, and stick to our plan. Well, right now we can't do it either because our queen is over here, but our plan is to bring her over here. So if we want to break through the center and they're pinning this knight, what should we do? Well, look, we just moved the queen to a different square, switching the queen from a light square to a dark square. This might seem like a bad move, but it's actually something all the pros do when they need to change the queen's diagonal. Now, what they want to do is get into the dark squares. See how simple that is? And now this knight is ready to jump. No matter what they do, they can't really do anything about it. I've noticed that the most common move here is A, but as you can see, it doesn't bother us at all. We can just jump with the knight now. Super, super simple. See? The plan is exactly the same as before. We're attacking the same thing. If they capture here, we'd be winning a piece. If they capture with the bishop, we'd be opening up this area and the attack would be absolutely devastating. In other words, they can't capture either. Well, let's take a look. What if they capture? I've been saying they can't, but if they actually do, how do you react? How should you react? Just capture here and this knight must move. And then notice how the attack is incredibly straightforward. First of all, I recommend that you place the queen over here because that way you already have a queen attacking, putting pressure on the bishop, and when it moves, we're directly threatening the opponent's castle position. We don't have more pieces yet, but we will, all right? For example, here, whenever they trade pieces with you, yes, these pawns are doubled, but check this out. We'll place the pawn on E, and this is an incredibly effective move. We're threatening pawn takes pawn. It doesn't matter if they capture us, and if not, we'll capture them. Either way, it doesn't matter to us. Why? Because no matter what happens, what we're doing is opening up the bishop's diagonal. What do we capture with? With the knight. Why? Because that way we bring another piece into the attack and open up the direct threat of bishop takes H, threatening checkmate. Now they can't capture because our queen is attacking. That's why I recommend capturing with the knight. The lethal threat now is, what is it? Bishop takes H, we just saw it. That's why they have to defend, for example, with this bishop that's undefended, that would be the best move. However, here we already have everything we need to win. And look, I'm going to show you an example here of a game with a finishing move that's going to fascinate you. Check out this move. Knight to F, check, giving away the knight, giving away the bishop, giving away absolutely everything. Why? Because if they capture us, what should they capture? Because there's no other option, you see? They have to capture here, and now they have an extra piece. All we would do is, first, bishop takes bishop, and now, when they come over here, we just bring in the queen, and checkmate comes on the next move, because the king has to move. And after a few checks, I'm going to show you this example. First, we take out this pawn, then this check, and when they come over here, we bring in the rook to deliver checkmate on the next move. Notice that the bishop is also going to join in, and if they manage to defend, even the other rook will come in too. Notice all their pieces are on the queen side, and it'll be completely impossible for them to defend against this attack, unless you play like this. Then they could defend, but if you go for the attack, it's impossible for them to stop it. So who do I recommend this system to? Well, this is actually the first system I'd recommend to everyone. Whether you have 500 ELO or 2300 ELO, if you use this system in your games, it's going to be absolutely lethal. And as I've shown you, I've really studied it well, so I could teach it to you for free and with high quality. I really appreciate it if you leave me a like. That's the only thing I ask. Of course, if you like the channel, you can subscribe. That's totally up to you. Why? Because that way you'll be able to watch daily videos with this awesome chess content every day. I hope you love this video. If you want more videos like this, let me know. And I'll see you tomorrow in the next video, friends. Goodbye.